Hey everyone, I'm just going to wait for a few people to jump on and then we'll get started. I wanted to come on here to talk about elimination diets and why they are creating so much stress and anxiety for people, and really that shouldn't be happening, because the stress and anxiety around eliminating foods from your life can actually be more inflammatory than the food itself. And so I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about healthy ways to approach it, but also, if you've reviewed, like I said in my stories, the post about the inflammation curve, the higher up on that inflammatory curve you are, the more foods you're not going to be able to tolerate. And why is that happening? So that's happening because you either have leaky gut, and leaky gut is creating a cascade of inflammatory events in your body. And so the worse your leaky gut is, the more foods you're not going to be able to tolerate. So once you start healing the leaky gut, you can start reintroducing foods again. And so one of my beefs that I have in the health and the alternative world is people will sometimes come at me and they're like, oh, you like foods that are high in anti-nutrients, so you don't know what you're talking about, and blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing is, if we had to cut out all the foods that had just like 10% negative to them, we wouldn't eat anything but air and water. So we can't cut out all the foods. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We have to understand, why is it that some people can tolerate anti-nutrient dense foods and other people cannot? And what differentiates people from those that can handle lectins and phytic acid and oxalates and those that cannot is the integrity of their gut lining. Those that can handle foods like that are able to, their guts are really strong. And so that little bit of inflammation, or that little bit of leaching of vitamins and minerals, is actually not a big deal. So there's something that I was saying in my gut class that for all the students, for the 2 cohorts, and I said, billionaires don't count pennies. And what do I mean by that? So going back to anti-nutrients, what people say is anti-nutrients, they cause harm to your gut and they leach you of all these nutrients. But here's the thing. If you have an abundance of nutrients and you eat a nutrient-dense lifestyle and your body is pretty healthy, that little bit of binding that these anti-nutrients do to things like calcium and magnesium and manganese, it's not a big deal. And so that's what I mean by billionaires don't count pennies, because even though it's leaching you just a little bit of these vitamins and minerals, in the grand scheme of things, these foods that are high in anti-nutrients are so nutritionally dense that they're giving you so much good stuff. But here is where the caveat comes in. So let's say you have a lot of inflammation, and your bank account is like $100 a month, right? And like you're really high on that inflammatory curve. Every penny counts. All right, so you're super nutrient depleted. You've had inflammation for years. When you do eat those anti-nutrient foods, yeah, those little pennies that you're being leached of, that's gonna count. That's gonna add up, and not in your favor. And so that's why I say, if you can heal that gut lining, and you can decrease the insult to that injury that you have, you will be able to eat foods that are high in oxalates, that are high in phytic acid, that are high in lectins. Because even research shows that lectins are anti-cancerous. Lectins they have nutritional benefits. And all of these anti-nutrient like foods that we think of are legumes, nuts and seeds, leafy greens. These are all really, really high antioxidant foods. These foods help with inflammation. They help decrease your inflammation. And so if you, for instance, love hormones, you want to eat nuts and seeds because they have a lot of incredible oils that help balance your hormones, that help you to detox extra estrogen. And so going back to, if you have gut issues, if you have, because if you have an inflammatory issue, you most likely, 9 out of 10 times you have a gut issue. You want to heal your gut up first. And so I talk about the gut infection protocols, and I talk about the gut restoration protocol. I'll post that in my stories if I remember, if someone reminds me. Someone please remind me. But you can start healing your gut and start getting rid of the top 6 most inflammatory foods. Now, this is where like the carnivore diet comes in, because the carnivore diet is actually an extreme elimination diet. And that's why people that do it feel so good, because they're super high on that inflammatory curve. That's my burn, by the way. I was making popcorn for the kids. So there are people that are really high on that inflammatory curve. And so going into a carnivore type diet is that extreme elimination diet where you're literally eating like meat and fat and organs. And so that can be really, really helpful for a lot of people short term. But I'm really curious if anyone has any research of a longitudinal study on people who have eaten carnivore for years and years, like 5 years. I would love to see those numbers, because my theory is that over time they are missing some extremely key nutrients that are going to cause other issues down the line. So it puts out big fires now, but other fires will start stemming years down the line. Here's another thing to consider when it comes to elimination diets that are pretty extreme. They're good for short term to help heal up your gut and to get the inflammation down. But when it comes to a long-term healthy immune system, because 70-80% of your immune system is your microbiota, the more diverse your microbiota, the healthier your body is. And there's tons of research behind that. But how do you get a diverse microbiota? Well, you have to eat a diversity in plants and meats. So if you're eating 6 foods, you are actually not nurturing a diverse microbiota. You are limiting the types of strains and species that are in your gut. So research has shown that people that eat plant-based and meat and healthy fats, so they're eating everything, they have a more diverse microbiota than those that do not. And so their immune system is actually healthier, and they actually are thinner. Because there's, I can't remember the ratio, but it's the ratio between Firmicutes and Bacteroidetes. And I think the more plants and meats you eat, the more diversity, the more Firmicutes you have and the less Bacteroidetes, and therefore your inflammation is down and you lose weight. And so, so that's where that all comes in. And so, oh, watch out, there's a car that's coming here. My dad's driving and someone almost drove into us. That was scary. So another thing to keep in mind is when you look at people, and everyone is different. Remember, everyone is different. So just because it worked for someone doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So don't put people in boxes. Don't put yourself in a box. You have to become your own research project, and you have to like try things for a long period of time. So if you're cutting out a food, cut it out for 30 days, because sometimes the proteins in that food that are creating the inflammation are still circulating in your blood after 30 days. So let's say you cut it out for 2 weeks and you're like, I didn't notice any difference. My inflammation didn't come down. Well, it's because you still have those proteins in your blood creating inflammation. And so give it a good 30 days. If you can, 2 to 3 months. And then gauge. But let's go back to the inflammatory curve. Let's say you're super high up on that inflammatory curve. You're like your snowball effect. There's so much momentum in your inflammation that it could literally take months to slow down that momentum, just to slow it down until it stops. And then you are reversing that momentum. And so you have to be really gentle. You have to be really kind with yourself and practice like self-love and self-awareness and like just being at peace with where you're at, because again, the stress and the anxiety about cutting out foods can almost be more detrimental than the foods themselves. And so what I was telling the students last night was, you have to make sure you are really good with you. Like you are in a really good place mentally, emotionally, before you start diving into cutting out more and more and more foods, because we use food to comfort us. We use food, it's very nurturing. Like food should be enjoyed. And so if you're in a really good place where you actually feel nurtured and you feel safe, then when you're cutting out the foods, there's less emotional charge. And so just make sure that you are in a really good space. Like you're seeing a therapist, maybe you're doing EMDR therapy, or ketamine therapy, whatever it is. Like make sure you're getting the help so that your mind is in alignment with your healing and that you're not in a stress response, because that stress response is actually going to make especially gut issues worse. Okay, so I'm going to look at everything. Also, this is another reason why the majority of people that come into my office that are vegans actually get worse is because their inflammation is so high, but then they go to plant-based diet, but plants are really high in all those anti-nutrients like phytic acid and lectins and oxalates, right? And so they're just increasing their inflammation because, again, billionaires don't count pennies, but most of the people that are in my office are not billionaires. They are very nutrient depleted, tons of inflammation, and so we have to be really mindful of that. But going back, like, not everyone is the same. Like, your microbiota species and ratios are different to the person next to you. No one in the world has the exact same species. So just be really mindful of that. I'm gonna go to some questions here. Let's see. So I love that your mom's doing the lectin-free diet. Long-term vegan and vegetarians apparently is very damaging to the gut. Yes, so that is true. Long-term veganism and vegetarianism is damaging to the gut if you don't have a healthy gut, if your gut is inflamed, if you have inflammation. Remember how I said that your body should be able to handle lectins, it should be able to handle phytic acid, should be able to handle oxalates, but if it's inflamed and it has been damaged over the past 5, 10, 15 years, it's not going to be able to do that. Like, think of like weightlifting, right? Lectins, like anti-nutrients, require a lot of like weight bearing. I cannot lift 200 pounds, right? But the bodybuilder next to me probably could. It's my dad next to me. He's not a bodybuilder. But do you know what I'm saying? So if you have a gut that has been primed to do massive heavy lifting because you've been eating tons of fiber and tons of anti-inflammatory foods, and that gut lining is like pristine and healthy, yeah, lectins are no big deal. Why is it that some people can eat beans and other people cannot? Well, it's because of their microbiota, and it's because of their gut lining. They're like, the person that can handle it probably has a healthier gut. They probably have less inflammation. They're further down on that inflammatory curve. Okay. Vegetarianism apparently. So that's where, and again, like, that's where carnivore people are like, oh my gosh, plants are so bad for you. Like, I've heard people say plants are toxic. And that's absolutely not true. Just make sure your gut can handle metabolizing them, because they are super, super nutrient dense, but you need to have a hearty gut to digest them. My brother-in-law is on 3 years meat only. He's flying today, and hold on, I don't know what you said there. Keats gets sick, so we will see. It's true. So individual. What do you recommend to start off with eliminating? Okay, great question. So there's the top 6. There is grains, dairy, corn, soy, nuts and seeds. Did I say beans? That. So start with like autoimmune paleo. I would start with autoimmune paleo and go from there. And then, oh, thank you. Thanks, you guys. I love you all. Hopefully this was helpful. Just my mini tangent on eliminating foods, and I will talk to you all soon. See, I couldn't get this all in stories. Like, it would have been way too long. You would have just been pushing over for like a small century. So I'll talk to you all later. If you guys don't have any questions, I'm gonna jump off, and bye. And also, remember that time I almost died in the car while I was doing a story? That would have been really epic and terrible. Like, videoed me getting in a car accident. Oh, eggs. Yes, eggs is one. Yes, so eggs you have to cut out. So the top 6: eggs, corn. So you can tell I haven't like reviewed this in a long time. I will do the post. I'll post it in my stories. Okay, grains, dairy. I'm like squirrel. Grains, dairy, corn, soy, nuts and seeds. I don't think I have eggs on my top 6 list. I don't remember. But remember, everyone is different. I'm going to post it in my stories because my brain is tired. So I will talk to you guys soon.